Okay, we're back for the last segment, and again on this show I have Gary Miller, who's a certified personal instructor, and we've been talking a lot about a lot of different subjects, but we've been focusing mainly on nutrition and exercise. And during the break we were talking about the sugar issue, and he did bring up a very good alternative sugar. One I've used is coconut sugar.
Absolutely.
And it's excellent in your coffee. It actually adds a nice flavor to the coffee. It really spices it up a lot.
Well, the nice thing about coconut sugar is it has absolutely no effect on your insulin, production of insulin. A lot of people don't realize when you spike your blood sugar, every bit of food or liquid you put in your mouth, okay, your body turns to glucose, which is blood sugar, okay? Your body and brain measures the blood, and Dr. Reiner can explain it a lot better than me, but what happens is your blood sugar rises at a small or minute amount on low glycemic foods, and high glycemic foods, which is spiking the blood sugar. Your blood sugar rises rapidly, and when it does that, your body produces insulin. And insulin's sole job, as far as my studies go, is to remove blood sugar, and it stores it as fat. So if you're eating all of these foods that get stored as fat, how are you going to lose weight? In fact, it's going to make you increase your weight beyond your ability to stop it. And people make the same cycle. What makes it even worse is when you're at low blood sugar after insulin has done its job, that makes you hungry. You start the cycle all over again. And people wonder why 8 out of 10 people in this country is overweight. It's an astronomical number, to be perfectly honest. We have people that is just enormous, and they just continue to make the same mistake continuously.
Well, and along that line, the way I explain it I've tried to explain it to people, which is your muscle cells absolutely do not need insulin to burn sugar. That means if you had 1 million molecules of sugar in your muscle cell and you use that muscle cell, it burns it and 1 million more come through the cell. The only active tissue in our body that stores sugar is the fat cell. And the fat cell has a glucose transport mechanism which is run by insulin. So you were very correct in that. And when your insulin, imagine that we're sitting in the hotel lobby of like the Bellagio, right? So what happens in this case is the people are the sugar molecules. And you have the turnstile, okay? So when insulin is not present, meaning in a diabetic model where you have no insulin, the turnstiles stop. Nobody can get in and nobody can get out, okay? So imagine that situation, and therefore that became the Atkins diet, because Dr. Atkins realized that in that situation, you take your fat and break it down to make sugar out of protein.
Exactly.
So you stimulate the diabetic model when you go on the Atkins diet and eat nothing but protein and fat. And you do burn fat, but the product for that is ketosis, which is a very acidic situation where you get muscle aches and you feel like, you know what, when you get very ketotic. So let's avoid that situation and eat the right sugars. But then again, let's suppose we eat bread or we eat something that has a lot of sugar and we spike our sugar, we tend a lot of insulin into our system, and now let's imagine that those turnstiles are turning in a turbocharger. They're sucking people out of Las Vegas Boulevard into the lobby of the Bellagio Hotel. All of a sudden, it's overcrowded. Guess what? The fire marshal shows up and says, you all got to leave. But the problem is they don't leave as sugar molecules. They leave out the back door as fatty acids and triglycerides. Then the liver sees free fatty acids and triglycerides and says, wait a minute, I thought we just ate. I should be storing sugar for glycogen, but now I got to start storing this fat because we're starving. Therefore, you displace glycogen for fat, and the glycogen, believe it or not, viewing audience, is the sugar your liver stores to get you from one meal to the next and you don't feel hungry.
It's also when your liver doesn't, energy level.
Yes, if your liver doesn't store glycogen, that's why you're hungry and you just ate this huge meal because it was all sugar. I heard one guy says, yeah, they serve you bread at a restaurant and then your dessert is your meal. Meaning the bottom line is, this is what you're doing. And you think about what they serve, a lot of bread, butter, steak, carrots, potatoes, and no wonder, it isn't just a 2,000 calorie meal, it's like a 5,000 calorie meal because of what it destroys your system into doing. And so this is why we see that, and that's why you're always hungry. Not to mention, insulin has been linked to atherogenesis, which is the formation of atherosclerosis. It's also linked to high blood pressure, heart disease. So it is so important when you start your meal to eat low glycemic foods. I mean, it's unbelievable.
I tell my clients that, you know, you can go online and you can just put in glycemic index chart online, and you'll get a chart of all foods that are on the glycemic index chart. The chart labels foods 0 to 100. If the food is number 55 or less on a glycemic index chart, it is low glycemic. If it is 70 and above, it's high glycemic. They consider 55 to 70 neutral, so it doesn't have that much effect one way or the other, depending upon how much you consume. But let me explain the difference between low glycemic and high glycemic. The glycemic index is how your body metabolizes blood sugar in your body, okay? And your body can only do two things with food. It can only burn it as energy or store it as fat. So if it's high glycemic, it gets stored as fat. If it's low glycemic, it gets burned off as energy. Well, then what does that tell you? Take that chart when you go shopping, buy as much of the foods as you're going to consume, low glycemic foods. And I'm not saying you can't eat this and you can't eat that. There's some things that I don't eat, but if you like it, eat it. But eat it in moderation, but you'll eat what's in your home. If you have all the refrigerator and cabinets filled with high glycemic foods, then you can count on gaining weight because it's going to spike your blood sugar with every meal.
And I know most people won't leave their house at 10 o'clock at night to go buy an ice cream sandwich. If it isn't in your house, you won't eat it. So I hear all the time patients were saying, well, my wife does the shopping, so therefore I'm a victim of that. Or this, I have one patient that says, well, I have to cook for my husband and he won't, you know, he doesn't eat anything but this stuff. And I'm like, you know, that's an unfortunate situation, but on the other hand, you're the one that shops, you're the one that makes these changes. You need to take care of yourself, and you need to educate yourself and eat properly. So it really does all start from the minute you get up to the minute you go to sleep on the food choices you make and the choices. And remember, if you buy good food, if you buy better food, trust me, I know everybody doesn't have unlimited funds for grocery shopping, but think about this. Buying better food may be a little bit more expensive, but there's two things that will happen with that. Number one, you'll have less of it, so therefore you'll eat less, and you'll be eating better, and you'll be losing weight. And eventually, if everybody else does this, if your friends see you losing weight, and they see you getting better, they're going to ask why that is happening. And you'll tell them, because I'm buying better food. If they decide that that's all it takes, because, you know, exercise is a bad word, and not everybody likes to do it, but we all exercise our jaws at the table. So if we just exercise correctly in what we're eating, then those food companies will become more profitable. And as they become more profitable, then it would be cheaper. Now, I'll tell you one scam. I buy stuff at Whole Foods as I go down to Vegas. Not everybody can. Unfortunately, one of the grocery stores here charges $1 more for a canned soup, and it's very expensive. Wolfgang Puff has the natural soups. I can buy it $1 cheaper in Vegas. That's a crime.
Yeah, it is.
That's a crime. I mean, to punish people up here for trying to get healthy, they want to charge them $1 more.
Yeah, I mean, and when you go buy foods at a supermarket or a grocery store, okay, don't depend on the labels. Read the ingredients, okay? I'll give you a very quick, short story. My next door neighbor, she's 84 years old, and I go next door since her husband passed away several years ago. She has 2.5 acres, and they have pine trees that are about 60 feet tall, and she can't get out there and rake up the pine needles and pick up the pine cones. If she does, she's in tremendous pain all the time, bent over and so on and so forth. So I go over there. I've been doing this for years. I go over there and I rake them up and so on and so forth. She knows that I don't eat junk food, okay? So she goes to the supermarket while I'm doing some work in her yard, and she comes back and she says, Gary, I bought lunch for us. And I said, really? She said, yeah, when you finish working, come on inside. Well, I went into her house, and she says, look, I bought a TV dinner for me, and I bought Healthy Choice for you. And I said, I'm sorry, sweetheart, but Healthy Choice is just another TV dinner. I mean, the only thing healthy about it is the word on the label, okay? Processed food's not good for you. And she don't quite understand that. But the bottom line is don't just look up at a label and say, oh, that's healthy, you know, and buy it. Read the ingredients, okay? And if you can't pronounce the word of some of the ingredients, then you don't need to be putting it in your body. It's that simple. They put more chemicals and garbage in foods now as food additives. It's a crying shame.
And you had this, we were on break, and you made the one suggestion to one of the people here in the station, said, go back to your great-grandmother's day and eat what they were eating, and you'll be much better off.
I believe that in my heart, that's the fastest and easiest way. People don't have to count calories. They don't have to get on a program. They don't have, if you have somebody with decent experience and knows what they're doing, they could help you tremendously. But if you just want to do something on your own to lose some weight, the quickest, easiest, simplest way is do a little research. Go back to your own great-grandmother and eat what she ate.
I got to interrupt you. We got to close for tonight. Thank you for being here. We could go forever.
Yes,
Pahrump,
we could.
thank you for tuning in tonight. This is Dr. Michael Reiner and Gary Miller. Have a good night.